Friday. The 30th anniversary of Screaming Jet's debut album comes out. We've got Dave joining us to talk to us about it. How you going, Dave?
Good, thanks, mate. Very well. Very stoked to out of all the darkness comes something to look forward to. So excited about Friday.
Yeah, and it's the 30th anniversary, as we said. A lot of bands are big on the remaster, the repackage, here's a drink coaster. That's the difference. You guys went in and you re-recorded the album. What was the decision behind that?
Well, firstly, we don't know where our masters are.
Right.
Having recorded all those years ago, and we signed to rooArt Records, who at the time was through Polygram, and then our second album was through Warner's, and the third album was through Shock, and it was just like, who knows where anything ended up. So it was partly that, but partly I'd been doing it with the Angels over their Face to Face and No Exit albums. And I just think it's a really nice kind of history marker, rather than just go and say, oh, well, this is what we were doing when we were 23 years old. Do it now, some 30 years later. And, hopefully we've got a bit more proficient at our craft and stuff like that. And this lineup is a great bunch of guys. So
yeah,
we just thought it was a nice little historic time marker.
That's cool. And look, we're not trying to sound negative, but when you guys came out, recording budgets were an actual thing.
They were.
People had this weird thing called money. So now we all sort of do it ourselves, and COVID sort of kicked you guys in the asses as well. So how did you go about recording the album itself?
Well, that was kind of one of the blessings of it all, because we weren't reinventing anything, and we weren't trying to mess around with arrangements or anything. So everyone kind of knew what they had to do. There's a few arrangements that have changed, and lead breaks where there weren't formally lead breaks and stuff. But that's kind of all grown from playing the songs live and different things developing. But so as far as recording, it was kind of, you just had to go in there and hit your notes, So
yeah.
And certainly I found out that we must have wasted so much time when we were in the studio back in the day, when all that money was flowing around, because I think I did knock my vocals over in about 2-3 hour sessions at my mate's house, as opposed to three or 4 days in Rhinoceros studios running amok.
Yeah, and it's funny that like big studios, you tend to have all the big production, you have all that, but the songs on the new versions, to me, I don't know about you, but they tend to breathe a little bit more, which is funny. Like, not having the huge production budget, but yet they do breathe a lot more.
Yeah, I think that's the way everything's developed, especially Steve James as an engineer and a producer, and he came from the old days where he was splicing tape on a little kind of aluminium guide that you sat the tape in, and then you put it back together, and he's come through all that, and obviously embraced the digital stuff. And I have to give a huge pat on the back to Scotty Kingman, our guitarist. He's all over that stuff, and he was really, was helpful to Steve to get him up some stuff that Steve could work on, get Cam to play the drums on, and it was a different experience. I wouldn't trade being in a studio for anything. It's the most fun you can have with your clothes on and off, and so but that's fun, and that's what we're looking to do. We're looking to record a new album later on, probably mid next year, and that's when we'll be able to get into a room and nut some songs out together.
Okay, and while you said you don't know where the masters are, were there any cutting room sort of floor tracks that were left off that debut?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, there's so much stuff that it was really hard, because you did it all on 2-inch, and then I think they had like a 1/4-inch tape running all the time to record the stuff going on in the studio. But yeah, who knows where it all is? It's probably better
where it is
left buried, some of that stuff. But yeah, a couple of the tracks that we recorded for the first album, we held on to those tracks and put one, at least, Tunnel, on the second album. So yeah, I think now with all the digital recording, everyone's got everything. There's all kinds of stuff, but no one's got the time or energy to go through it all and edit it up.
And anniversaries tend to make people think along the way. So, what was Newcastle like back when you guys were starting out as a place to sort of cut your teeth?
Oh, it was brilliant. It was there was a lot of venues, and you literally could go in and say, "We've got a band. This is our cassette. These are the songs we play." And word of mouth would help. But you would literally go and see the managers at the place to ask them for gigs, and then from there we kind of started as our first band, Aspect. Myself and Grant were in that. As that kind of grew, then you started getting booked. We had a booking agent in Newcastle, and then we started supporting bands, and that's where our real love of wanting to go bigger came from. We started supporting Chain and the Choir Boys. We supported Stevie Wright. We supported Goanna, a whole bunch of bands, and it was like a traveling circus coming through town. We were still at high school, and we were going to load in with these bands. Everyone's smoking and telling stories about the night before, and they were off to the next town. And I was like, hang on, this sounds unreal. And that's why I think by the time we'd all, myself and Grant and Paul, knew each other the best, and then Brad Heaney came along, and we'd been admirers of his because he'd been in this big band, DV8, and Richie Lara. So when we all got together, we were like, right, what we're going to do is write our own songs, start just having a crack. And when we first got to Sydney, after being in a band I've been in a band for 5, 6 years by that stage, and people were like, Michael Gudinski's here. Oh, Chris Murphy's here. I was like, who are they? Tell them I'm here. I was like, no. And so, I mean, when I hear these stories, and then they all got involved, I was like, yeah, I could care less, because we were like a gang. Because we come from Newey, we were like, where people would come up and say, where are you from? Like record company executives, and we say, we're from Newcastle. Give them the old look, and they take a little step back.
Yep.
So we played it up to the hilt.
Yeah, well, you guys were around well before the internet, so you had to be your own biggest fans back then. No one else was going to do it for you.
Yeah, you did, and you backed yourself, and you kind of there was the connection that you had with fans was obviously only on your gigs and stuff like that. And it did grow much more organically. And from that you learn how to interact with people. I mean, I remember we were 16 and 17. We had to walk into pubs where there was one bloke called Tractor Face, right? He owned a pub called the Mayfield Hotel. So you can imagine he was an attractive man, and gruff with it. But you just had to walk in there and say, mate, we're the band. Where do we set up? And you couldn't be like standing there going, oh, excuse me, mister. You just had to kind of grow up, I guess. And that was where we learned a lot of our interactions with adults, and kind of that became the gang that we were.
That's the thing. From Newcastle, being a Sydney boy myself, you just drive down a couple of hours and you're playing like the Bull and Bush, the RSL circuits, and you guys, unlike today, even pre-COVID, like you could make a good, living as a band from a 2-hour drive down the freeway.
Yeah, that's right. And we were more than happy to get in that van and drive anywhere that we could, and that's what started happening. We first went down to Sydney, and then we went up to, I think Sydney, and then to Melbourne. That was that one. If you could go down to Melbourne and do a couple of weeks of shows and get out of town unscathed, that was always a good thing. And then of course you had to drive up the Hume Highway, which usually happened on a Sunday night after the last gig of 2 weeks. So 11-hour drive. It was pretty sketchy sometimes.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that those things now, like you couldn't trade those, because that's probably why as a band you guys aren't jaded now, like, and you're still hungry, and the things like the recording show it. As I said, like, for me, Stop the World takes on a whole new meaning on this recording for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. And I was thinking Shine On as well. I mean, especially the Sydney and Victorians, like the light at the end of the tunnel's there, and they're finally going to, thankfully get us back to some sort of normality, and which opens up the whole country, obviously, because, It's very hard just to fly from Adelaide to Brisbane to do a show and then fly back, whereas you can go to Melbourne and Sydney. So yeah, hopefully that's 2022 is all booked out.
Yeah, oh, that's good. And that's the thing, is that you're a band of many bands, because you're all sort of interchanged between a lot of different acts, different states. How hard is it to wrangle the Screaming Jets? Like, seriously, how hard is it to wrangle this band?
Well, apart from COVID, it's pretty easy, you know, with flights being what they are and stuff. Now, I mean, there was, you just, back in the day, once again, you couldn't live in different states. I mean, because I was saying it was all driving. There was no flights. I reckon plane travel for us started probably mid-90s when the budget airlines started coming along.
Yep.
And same for everyone. And but before that, it was just driving. If we had I remember one of our killer drives. We did a show on the Gold Coast on the Sunday night, and we had a show in Cairns on the Wednesday night. And our crew just got in that car, in their trucks, and just drove. Well, God knows how they made it, but yeah. So that was, and then you're up in Cairns, then you got to come home. So then you got to drive. You stop at Townsville and Rocky and all those places down to Brisbane, and yeah. So it was a different time, but as you say, it made us the band we are, and it made those first 10 years. That's all we did. So it kind of that stuff never leaves you.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Then you guys were lucky enough to move on to do the arena openers and stuff like that, and as probably because of the traction that you built, that made people take notice. So when you think back to then, I want you to think about the album as it was recorded and as it's recorded now. Do you have a favorite from back then and a favorite on the new version?
Well, look, I was always very proud of the Come On. It was one of my songs. It was the first song on the album. It's been the first song that we play pretty well, I reckon, about 90% of all shows that we've ever done, because it just says, we're here. Here, let's go, you know. And we've changed it up a bit at different times with different album releases and stuff like that. So I've always loved that one, and felt like, you know, myself and Richie kind of hit the nail on the head with that. But the one for this re-recording was the only one, the last song on the track, which is usually the forgotten stepchild, you know. And dead set, we have not played it for, I don't know how long. We probably played it leading up to the recording of the album, and then a little bit after it, maybe a few times in different tours. But it didn't mean really anything to me, because I'm 23 and I'm singing a line, is there such a thing as senility? Is it in an old mind? Is it there all the time? When I'm 23, right? I don't care. I'm going to be dead by the time I'm 30. I wouldn't even know what senility is. Now I'm 53. You know, you start to think, well, yeah. But you know, that's the worst part about getting the best part about getting older is getting older. So but yeah, songs take on different meanings, and that's definitely one I cannot wait to play live. And I also can't wait to play the album in its order. I don't think we ever did that, and I really see the value in doing that for the fans who've listened to it exactly like that. Who knows, 1,000 times, 2,000, who knows how many times they've let that album play through. And I just think it'll be a real great experience for all of us.
So you're thinking about those fans that, you know, remember that thing called an album that you listen to when and you start it and you maybe flip it, and, you know, what was the album for you that just didn't get stopped played in its entirety?
There's been a few. I used to punish my parents with Kiss Alive. I would play it, both albums. So both albums, of course, and the loudest part was him. The loudest part was Black Diamond when he's doing that mad. Is it Black Diamond? And the drum solo. I must have been, I reckon I was only about 10 or maybe 8 or 10, because I was born in 68, and when that come out, 75 or something like that. So I was just like that. That was the first. That was probably the first album that I ever used to just take out, put on the first side, second side, third side, fourth side. That, and then Appetite for Destruction. Man, we could not listen to that enough. It was just, and we lived in a house. Oh, we're all dossing kind of at a house that a mate worked at a mechanic in Newcastle, and he'd bring a police car home every now and again, and we would just have Guns N' Roses cranking with a police car parked in our driveway, and bigging ourselves up, thinking, oh, everyone thinks we're getting in trouble, but it's our police car. But yeah, that's another one. Yeah, I'm same. There's not many that you play covered like start to finish. I don't reckon. Probably Alice in Chains, their first album, was another one. Facelift that I listened to till I wore it out.
Cool. And we talk about albums and now labels, and you partnered with Dinner for Wolves on this one. What are they bringing to the table as a label in 2021?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's so different to when we started off and signed a 7-album deal in 1990. So I mean, it's kind of the good thing about our relationship is that we keep being successful with those guys. Rick Butterworth's been really good to us and stuck by us, and so that network of not just the bigger record shops and stuff like that, but you've got to have your online stuff all under control and that. So they've been really good like that. This is the first time we've done vinyl with them, so fingers crossed everyone loves it. Purple vinyl as well, no less.
That's great.
So yeah, they've been fantastic, and it's great to the wheels that are in motion with the big record companies at the moment. They're in all sorts of bother. I think big record companies are about to go through the same type of reckoning that the tobacco companies went through, knowing they were involved in unconscionable conduct with young bands, myself included, 23 years old. You think I knew what the word in perpetuity meant when I was 23, signing a contract in a jet? And oh yeah, in perpetuity, can't be that long, forever.
Mm-hmm.
And not even in Australia, not even in the world, but in the known universe they put in there, So these are just unconscionable things, and I think they've known about it for a long time, and that they're going to be caught up in a class action eventually by the cast-offs of people who've been, kicked to the curb, whether they be artists or Dennis Handlin's employees.
Yep. And even a 7-album deal is like, you wouldn't even, not that a company would offer it today, but you wouldn't even take it, not in a million years.
No, we thought a 7-album deal. It was 1990. We thought this will be over by the 2000s, thinking we'd put out an album every year or 18 months or whatever, but never got to that 7th album. And just by the way, the advance for that 7th album was meant to be $1 million.
Yeah, and people tend to forget what the word advance means. They want it back.
Yeah, that's right. It's like a loan from the bank, but the thing is, at least when you're paying back a bank, you know when you paid it back.
Yep.
And the record company goes, not yet. Yeah, not yet, mate. Nah, not yet. We'll let you know.
And this leads into my actual final question. Dave Gleeson, 2021, gets the DeLorean, goes back 30 years. What advice do you give, Dave 30 years ago?
Video everything and be the engineers of your own kind of documentary. I mean, I was under the impression that all that early footage of U2 and all those bands you see all the early footage of, even the Beatles, I just thought people were running around, just normal punters running around filming it. But what they were doing, they were building their own story. They were, and whether the Beatles knew it or not, Brian Epstein was certainly doing it, and engineering the whole growth into the world. So, look, it's one of those things. I was having far too good a time to be the guy holding the camera.
Will there be any kind of retrospective video stuff with what you have available?
Yeah, we've got a bunch of stuff available to us, and it's just a matter of getting the time, and I think once we get the ball rolling, and because basically instead of being able to tour and at least get some money in the kitty to pay for the recordings and that, we've just been spending money. So once we get it back on the road and we get the machine up and running again, hopefully we can get a DVD out and pay homage to all who've been through the Jets.
Excellent. And final thing for today is let everyone know what's going on for 2022 and sort of any final words.
2022, the Jets, the All for One tour is going to be, it has been postponed until July next year. That's partially because I'm off with my other mob doing a bunch of shows, much to the Screaming Jets love. They love it when I'm off. I can't play for months. So yeah, July. Having said that, in November, early November, we're going to announce some dates through January and February. Just 3 or 4 weeks there that we've got a window of opportunity to tour. We're going to be doing that, and of course, we're going to be recording a new record that's underway already. And fingers crossed, it'll come out sometime next year. So onwards and upwards.
Awesome, mate. I will see you next show in Brizzy, either with those other guys or with the Jets.
Yeah, no worries, man. It's been great to talk to you again, and can't wait to see you in the flesh.
See you next time, buddy.
All right, cheers.
Bye.